sent police officers into the schools of working-class brown kids to harass and intimidate them, while standing accused of mishandling the investigations into the deaths of these very same children, like Shukri Abdi, who died in Surrey less than 2 years ago. In just the last year, Manchester police left over 80,000 crimes go unreported, and 70% of domestic violence cases are closed prematurely. They fail survivors of violence, and they themselves are perpetrators who act in violence. We say no more. We are here to remember those ripped from us by the courts, the prisons, the psychiatric units, the detention centers, and the deportation flights, and those we have lost to the hands of violent men emboldened by a violent state. Just this week, an off-duty police officer who admitted to assaulting Emma Homer while she worked home alone at night with restraint techniques learned in police training has walked free from the court and still remains in a post with West Midlands Police. Only a few years ago, police were widely accused of using sexual violence against the women of the Barton Moss anti-fracking camp just near here as they broke up their protest. In the words of Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. We are here and serious as we remember that death is no respite. We see the list of allegations against the cops roll in. Allegations of sending obscene pictures on WhatsApp to their colleagues while working around the scene of Sarah Everard's burial, of taking photos with the dead bodies of Bieber Henry and the coach Molman and sending them to colleagues, of mishandling the investigation into the death of Shukri Abdi, and allegations of failing to fully investigate the death of Blessing Olusegun in September. These are acts of gendered and racist violence, and we say no more.
In the face of such injustice, it is easy to feel powerless, exhausted, overwhelmed, alone. But this week of mass mobilising in London and beyond has already forced the government, the police and Priti Patel to slow down their attempt to rush through this bill. Because together, we can make a difference. We can keep going and we will keep going. If we are committed to ending state and gendered violence, we need to stop this bill completely. We don't give up if they make concessions. We don't allow them to throw marginalised groups like sex workers or Roma, traveller and Gypsy communities under the bus to maintain wider rights to protest. We fight together for all of us. We have seen this government cut domestic violence services again and again while giving more powers to the police. And we have seen what the police do to our communities and our comrades. We follow the calls from Black Lives Matter to defund the police. The government must fund community services instead. For the people, by the people. We demand long-term secure funding. We demand trauma-informed support. There is no safety without welfare. We demand specialist domestic and sexual violence services. We demand autonomous trans healthcare. We demand universal access to a benefit system that treats people with respect. We demand a real living wage, reproductive justice, and health and social care provision. We demand that access to safety and services should not be dependent on your immigration status. We demand specific provision for migrant women experiencing domestic violence and an end to no recourse to public funds. We demand access to safe and secure housing for all. We demand a justice system that does not ignore, neglect and re-traumatize. Survivors must not be criminalized. We say, fight back! Together we must imagine greater than the scraps we've been given. We must rise up, we must fight back. If the government wants to control us, we must become ungovernable. We call to our workplace unions, tenants unions, groups taking action on the ground to join together and for all of us to join with them. We must build our own systems of care, justice and accountability. We must take our demands and make it impossible for those in power to refuse. We are part of a long line of unruly people. This bill did not come out of nowhere. The people in power were shaken by the power of Extinction Rebellion and Black Lives Matter. We stand in a city built on the backs of working and enslaved people. We stand near the site of the Peterloo massacre, where the working classes demanded democracy and were met with brutality from the state. We stand during a pandemic that has seen mass death of the working classes, whilst the riches pocket our taxes and give vital PPE contracts to their mates. We say, not in our name.
people deny the 97% statistic, and I can tell you now that it's closer to 100. My 11-year-old sister has told me about times where she has been scared walking through the streets because people have beeped their cars at her. I am currently going for a police case with a man who took indecent images of me at my place of work. Not 2 weeks ago was I followed by a group of 15 men threatening to rape me. There is nothing that we can do other than stand out here and raise our voices and say that these are our streets and we are taking them back.
Enough. We have had enough, and we want to kill this bill. Police crime sentencing and court bill is oppressive. It is xenophobic. It is racist. It is homophobic. It is transphobic. When they take away our right to come out here on these streets, it becomes oppressive. And what do we say? Kill the bill. It is an assault on our democratic right to be here. We are allowed to be here. Last 2 weeks have shown us that when we come out in numbers, we can change and influence what happens. We've seen the Labour U-turn. We've seen them put the date back till after Easter, but that is not enough. We have still got work to do. We are going to tell them to do what? Kill the bill! Kill the bill! Kill the bill! Kill the bill! It's government. The people that run this country have told us that they do not care for us. They do not care for our movement. They do not care about the climate crisis, and that is why they have made this 300-page long document. They want to use the term domestic extremists to aggravated activists, and they are talking about each and every single one of us here today. They are saying that if you are using direct action, they are coming for you. I take this attempt to silence us and the treatment of the people at the vigil for Sarah Everard as an endorsement of white supremacist patriarchy. Are you with me? With the violence we have seen over the last 12 months with the protests alone, do they need more power? No! Do we need them to listen? Yes! Athena Shakur said to us, trust me, you cannot change nothing without causing some degree of disruption. And if we had the power to make those changes, we would not need to be here. We would have made them changes that we have been demanding for generations a long time ago. I've got better things to be doing on my Saturday. The National Police Council have worked hard to lobby for the new powers. They will be the ones that decide what happens when this bill is voted through. And there are some seriously alarming consequences, and I'm going to run through a couple with you now. The 1998 Road Traffic Act will be updated, meaning that police officers will no longer be regular drivers. They will not be liable for careless and dangerous driving, which will mean, given the deaths of people that have already died in police chases, this number will increase. Kill the bill! The bill increases powers that will see those from nomadic communities, people who live without bricks and mortar, targeted, criminalised and subject to force. Kill the bill. Charitable service will be classed as prison academies. They will be given funding, tax breaks for secure schools, and this will increase and expand the use of exclusions used for 10 to 17-year-olds. We know that this predominantly happens in black and brown communities, so instead of young people being supported, they'll be criminalised and have their childhood stolen. Kill the bill! Parole boards will have increased powers. Increased powers to deny parole. Parole that has been granted will see harsher measures, tougher monitoring, and worse licensing conditions, meaning that more people will go to jail for recall than offences committed. The Secretary of State will be able to interfere in those parole decisions. Kill the bill! These new measures make sense when you take into account the prison estates transformation programme that will give us 10,000 more prison places in several new mega prisons. We say that we do not want these new prisons, but we know that they need to be full to be profitable. Kill the bill! In our beautiful city of Manchester, we have got an amazing population of people that are diverse but united. We know that we've got a police force that's been placed in special measures after 80,000 misreported cases, and another 4,500 have come out this week. See, week in, week out, disproportionate policing in our black and brown communities. We see Home Office data that says that if you are a black man, you are 5 times more likely to be tasered. We have seen in the last decade over 23,000 incidents of taser use. That says that it has increased by 500% over the last decade alone. We want to say that no more tasers, no more tasers. We also want to know why it's okay for 15% of the taser use in the last year has been used against those who've been seen to have mental or physical disabilities. Despite this, there are plans to double taser-trained officers in this city. What do we say? We see youth violence strategies that, rather than attack the structural inequalities at play and support our young people in their communities, they are being criminalised instead. This will be significantly impacted by the policy to have 20 new police-based officers across GM in the next 12 months. We see harsh sentencing from our court structures who tear communities apart by taking our black teenagers off the street under the power of joint enterprise. The Centre for Women's Justice has told us that police forces are failing victims, gendered and male violence. They have told us the same is happening to the partners and spouses of officers, failing to properly investigate cases but choosing to protect employees instead. There was a femicide census that took place from 2009 to 2015. Now, some of these names have dropped out of the public attention now. Some of them never even made it there, but I want to remind you of these women. And these have been joined by countless more since. Claire Wood, Catherine Cullen, Jean Derbyshire, Claire Howarth, Jean Rhodes, Tricia Smalls, Carly Swift, Joanne Oliver, Stacey Quigley, Joanne Kitchen, Linda Hankey, Elsie Hayes, Debbie Numeric, Pawnee Nell, Julie Edwards, Tracy Jones, Nellie Garachi, Tracy Arden, Tricia Seddon, Esther Aragundade, Razu Kanum, Kelly Marie Davis, Sabia Katoon, Leanne McNuff, Marion Stone, Nona Bone, Nicola Hughes, Dolly Johnson, Manaz Rafi, Victoria Adams, Ethel Jahonin, Lindsay Ashton, Zanita Kindazaka, Marion Stones, Raina Alian, Takanda, Eunice, Caroline Flanagan, Carol Bland, Elaine Flanagan, Roxana Mia, Lynn Howarth, Sandra Brotherton, still shouting, justice for Yusuf Maki, justice for Shukri Abdi, babies who had their lives snatched away from them and the families left behind with the trauma and the failings of the system. No more. We are shouting, free Shianda Mangaza, justice for Nicole Smallman, justice for Biba Henry, justice for Blessing Olusegun, justice for Belly Majinga. There are countless more. Tell me now, I want to know, how does it make sense to increase these powers to police forces that have not done their job in the past, that aren't doing their job now, which is why they're in special measures, that have been proven to be institutionally racist, proven to fail victims and survivors of male and gendered violence, and proven to cannot bring justice to our murdered sisters, aunties and mothers, it doesn't make sense. So kill the fucking bill. Progressive moves made by our political structures without disruption. So I leave you now with the wise words of Auntie Assata Shakur. In the long run, the people are our only appeal. The only ones who can free ourselves. No justice! No peace!
Every day I go to work, I see violence against women. Every day I see reports of crime, harm and violence, from robbery to stalking, harassment, assault, sexual violence and rape. Every single person that reports to me has chosen to come to us instead of tell the police what's happened to them. I work for National Ugly Mug. We provide support for sex workers who are victims of crime. Lived experience is embedded through everything we do. What I have to say today isn't just from me, but also the sex workers who work for NUM and are supported by NUM. I am here because sex workers feel the impact of state violence, punitive policing, criminalisation, stigma and marginalisation every day. I'm here because of the efforts of MPs to capitalise on violence against sex workers as a means to their own end. Labour MP Diana Johnson has jumped on the police, crime, sentencing and courts bill to attach an amendment criminalising those who buy sex. A law which will not only give police more power over sex workers, but that we know from its implementation in other countries gets sex workers killed. You do not speak for us! I'm here to shout up the voice of the campaigners for these laws who've never known poverty, hunger, addiction, or some to dig for money, to tell them to stay in their lane and listen to us. Your speaking over us is violence. Your denial of our autonomy is violent. Your patronising, paternalistic, moralistic idealism is violence. Sex workers are crying out for safety, protection and workers' rights. We know what we need. Please listen to us. There can be no justice for any woman until there is justice for all women. Migrant women, regardless of whether they come out through the official channels or not. Women of colour, lesbian, bisexual and queer women, trans women, disabled women, homeless women, women in poverty, sex working women. We know what it's like to be on the receiving end of state violence already. We cannot just prevent this from getting worse, we have to make things better! A friend of mine spoke at the Uncut protest in Leeds last week. She had this to say: where there is poverty, there is sex work. We cannot leave behind the most vulnerable, precarious and marginalised women. We cannot adhere to sex worker exclusionary politics. We can no longer speak over women, but instead we must listen to them about what they need from us. Poverty is a political choice and poverty is violence. We demand full decriminalisation of sex work and our recognition of workers entitled to the same safety and support as anyone else. We demand, at the bare minimum, a real living wage and carers' income. We demand accessible healthcare and education for all, and an end to racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia, borders, ableism, and every other system that keeps us excluded. Violence against women, we must end violence against sex workers. To end violence against sex workers, we must listen to them, uplift them, and act in solidarity with them. Thanks for listening. Kill the bill!
And gendered violence has oppressed us. We're here today to say no more. The murder of Sarah Everard, allegedly at the hands of a serving Met police officer, and the police brutality in Met by women voicing their grief at Clapham Common cannot demonstrate this clearer. The shooting in Atlanta, which killed at least 6 East Asian women, has sparked a conversation about how East and Southeast Asian women are fetishized, stereotyped, and left unprotected. But this is not a new conversation. We've been saying this for so long, so why did it take 6 of us to die for people to start listening? The Daily Mail reported on this story with the headline that the suspect went to rehab for sex addiction and carried a Bible at high school. Sky News' headline was suspect had a sex addiction and was attempting to take out temptation. Fuck Sky News! Fuck shooter, stressing that it was because of his sexual addiction, as if it makes that better. Racism and sexism are linked. East and Southeast Asian women are constantly fetishized as either submissive and meek or hypersexualized and dirty. We're supposedly weak and obedient, but at the same time exotic deviants who lure in white men. Many of these stereotypes can be traced back to US imperialism and the racism, xenophobia and exploitation targeted at East and Southeast Asian women that went alongside this. And this is not just an American problem either. Since COVID, anti-Asian hate crimes has risen by about 300% in the UK. But the real figure is likely to be much higher. And my own family has been abused in the streets. COVID might have amplified it, but it did not start it. And if you think the police are on our side, the police still class East and Southeast Asians as Oriental, which last time I checked, that was an offensive term to describe objects, let alone people. A Chinese student attacked in hate crimes by 3 men in Liverpool last March was prosecuted by the CPS when he fought back. Victims of anti-Asian hate crime report having their cases closed early with no investigation. Anti-Asian racism is killing us and is supported by the state. Filipinos are 2% of NHS's workforce, but make up 25% of COVID deaths. Migrant nurses report being assigned to riskier hospital wards over their white colleagues. The first 4 medics to die from COVID whilst working was not of East or Southeast Asian descent, all Muslim and all people of colour. Make no mistake, this isn't simply state neglect, this is active state violence. Violence against women and girls is endemic in this country. 97% of women in the UK report having been sexually harassed, but we believe it's probably nearer to 100%. Every single woman has a story to tell, but it is met with constant victim blaming and gaslighting. Just 1.4% of reported rape cases result in the suspect being charged. We cannot rely on these inherently misogynistic and racist institutions to save us. In fact, they are crushing us. And now the Conservative government is trying to make protesting unlawful. This bill will curtail our right to protest, shut down dissent, and provide the police with more powers. This bill increases the sentence for people defacing a statue to 10 years, which is double the minimum sentence for rape. It criminalizes Gypsy Roman travelers communities for merely existing. It allows police to seize and hold assets, including homes, just from their own racist suspicions. And those evictions won't be the violence of bailiffs alone, no. Do you want to know how the police evict Gypsy Roman traveler communities? They send riot police in. And if you can't see how this will increase violence against Gypsy Roman traveler women and make accessing health and education and social services even harder, I don't know what I can say to you. Now we must be clear, this is not just any bill. This bill will start a pogrom against Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities. And this pogrom against Gypsy, Roma and traveller communities is being led by those who hold the gear sticks to our state. It's no doubt that this bill will be used to further push marginalised communities and strip us of our humanity. It is a danger to us all. So what do we say? We say kill this bill! This bill has been delayed. They tried to rush it through and avoid scrutiny, but Sisters Uncut and many others fought back, and now they've delayed the committee stage. Make no mistake, this is a win, but the fight is not over. We will not stop fighting until we kill this bill for good, and all the forces it emerges from. Policing, prisons, detention, deportation, racism, sexism, and capitalism. So we're here today to fight back, and we're here today to say, kill this bill! Kill this bill! Kill this bill! Kill this bill! Kill that 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 bill!
So, I think like most people, I was actually disgusted by the second vote on this bill in Parliament the other day. It is one of the most sweepingly authoritarian and unabashedly fascist bills proposed in modern British history. And it actually feels quite surreal to be living through it. Police will be given far more more power to destroy Roma, Gypsy and traveller community encampments in a continuation of Britain's neo-pogrom destruction of their way of life, and will also allow for the same treatment to be used against unhoused people and squatters. Search warrants in the bill can be obtained without prosecution. Curfew sentences will be doubled. They will be allowing for a stronger monitoring of young people with criminal offences, including highly invasive location monitoring. Far more stop and search powers which will disproportionately harm black communities, including the right to stop and search a person previously found carrying a knife at any time without reason. The bill orders greater sharing of data and information between the police, local authorities and the NHS. That's our private information. Similarly, it requires prison, youth and educational authorities to collaborate upon request and, alongside tax breaks for charities if they keep children in custody, this will essentially lead to children's prison. Judges can hand out maximum sentences to people aged between 18 and 20. There are more whole life orders, more life sentences, the halting of automatic early releases, and many increased penalties. This bill is looking to expand Britain's prison population massively, with the Tories announcing previously that they are creating thousands of new prison spaces. Low-level offenders and activists will find themselves in jail far more frequently, and serious offenders will spend far longer inside too. We know that keeping people in prison is a cruel and ineffective method of dealing with crime. Locking people away only perpetuates a cycle of suffering, with high levels of abuse, addiction, mental health problems and illness plaguing British prisons, which has only got worse in the pandemic, with some prisoners not given masks until October 2020 and only being allowed out for 1 hour a day, having to choose between showering and going outside. We do not have a system that rehabilitates or reforms, only a cold-blooded means of punishing people and continuing the cycle of crime. It suppresses entire communities, with prison intake in the UK being hugely disproportionately racist, to either suppress political or cultural dissent or appease the appetites of a ferociously racist media. Then we have the attack on protesting. 10 years in prison for defacing a statue is the Tories' most significant move in the quote-unquote culture war. Fuck the Tories! But the sentence of 10 years for organising a protest that causes or risks causing annoyance is the most draconian measure I have ever witnessed in my lifetime. At this point, I'm sure I don't need to explain how literally every right that oppressed peoples have gained has been won using protest. Protest is the key to democracy, the key for change, and the key to revolution, and we cannot exist in liberty without it. Tories understand this. Priti Patel knows that she literally wouldn't be a politician if people hadn't burned and bombed shit down before her. Fuck Priti Patel! I need to be very clear, Priti Patel is fascist scum. Priti Patel is not girl power! The Tories are more than aware that in order to disarm your opposition, you have to take away their freedom. With the effective Extinction Rebellion protests, which, with an increasingly fucked planet, will not go away, with fishermen and farmers harmed by Brexit, with nurses and other key workers facing pay cuts despite risking their lives, with increased police brutality, media racism, raging transphobia, increasing hate crimes and a growing disparity in wealth, intersected by ethnicity and gender, the Tories know that protesting is a threat to the direction that they want to continue steering our society and economy in. And that is a direction beyond neoliberalism. Capitalism is no longer leading to increased living standards. The past 10 years have proved that globally. Capitalism is also about to run out of resources unless it quickly embraces a green revolution. Capitalism is in crisis, and when capitalism is in crisis, revolution is treading on its heels. The Tories have to continue prioritising the free market for their own gain, and can only do so by securing economic, social and cultural security. While in a pandemic, there is no economic security. So in order to keep capitalism moving forward through this crisis, any opportunity for change must be stifled through fascism. And this is what they're doing. This isn't the rise of fascism, that started years ago. This is fascism. This is 100% unadulterated fascism. And this, our descent into fascism, was made possible by the so-called culture war. As radical leftist movements, grassroots movements for justice and change became demonized as the destroyers of free speech, the erasers of British identity, and a threat to our democracy. Free speech champions, banning left-wing texts in schools, the Spy Cops bill, the populism, the tight control over the British media. Britain has been gaslighted by politicians and the media. The Tories have had to reframe the actual left as the enemy of the British people. But that's not true. Our enemy is the British state. And if police officers enforce their fascist rule, then that makes the police our enemy too. When I say AC, AB, I want everyone to shout, all cops are bastards. A-C-A-B, all cops are bastards! Although, I am going to mention it is actually quite sickening to see that it's taken this fucking bill, as well as police violence against middle-class white women, to draw widespread criticism from politicians and the media. Racist policing and a racist legal system have been depriving BIPOC communities in the UK of vital freedoms for a long time, with shit like voter suppression through incarceration and police brutality. The horrors of neo-colonialism in modern Britain, such as Grenfell and the Windrush scandal, are akin to the atrocities of so many authoritarian states in the past. Yet nobody dared utter fascism in regard to these. I also have to mention how grateful we should be as protesters, for the wonderful work of Sisters Uncut in basically single-handedly organising all of the direct action despite the legal risks. Sisters Uncut are showing the difference between a radical organisation and a liberal organisation. When the courts told Reclaim These Streets that they couldn't go ahead with the vigil for Sarah Everard, they planned to not go ahead with it. So Sisters Uncut went ahead with it instead and have since been organising direct action in the days preceding that. I also want to criticise Reclaim These Streets for their comments about Cressida Dick, saying that she shouldn't resign because she is one of the most senior women in Britain. Really? Would you say that to Margaret Thatcher when she was funding illegal paramilitary? This is the problem with surface-level liberal organisations. They do not care for real radical change. Having a female Met chief isn't progressive. Destroying the Met entirely is. Where do we go about fighting fascism outside of violence? Firstly, you can continue sharing as much as possible online, trying to raise awareness and keep this trending. That is imperative. Continue emailing MPs and also lords to try and dissuade them from allowing it to pass. Looking at the bigger picture, however, there needs to be a larger change. We need to defund the police. There's been a lot of talk about what we can do to combat violence against women. As I mentioned, sending offenders to prison does not work. A lot of these men are very fucked up and they need psychological intervention. However, this isn't all. It's certainly not on the victims to do anything either. Sarah wore bright clothes, Sarah avoided alleyways, and Sarah phoned her boyfriend. She did everything, and yet look what happened. We can educate boys too. But aren't boys already educated somewhat? Boys know not to murder, don't they? We all know not to murder. It is instead a pathological and systemic sickness reinforced in culture and in law that enables men to do this. It is a culture that degrades and sexualizes women and non-binary people, and a legal system that works in favor of men, and a societal power structure that allows men in positions of power, like the police, to exercise it and to do what they want to women non-binary people because they have been granted that power. While we work on eradicating rape culture and misogyny from society through methods like therapy and better education, we must also rid ourselves of the societal institutions that allow so many men to abuse their power on a regular basis with extra protection from the law. If the law acts as a very mild deterrent for some men, it does not work for the police. There is no deterrent for an enforcer of the law. In 1990, a study in the US found that 40% of officers have perpetrated domestic violence compared to 10% of the normal population. And in 2019, the UK conviction rate for domestic abuse stood at 6.2% on average. For police, it's 3.9%. Not only do we have to change the prison system to actually reform people so they can re-enter society as a genuine non-threat, but we have to rid ourselves of the police for our own protection. Already in 2021, 2 black men in Wales have been killed at the hands of the police, while the police and the IOPC are currently withholding crucial body cam footage in order to protect their officers. The papers didn't care, but back in the summer, the Met Police were abusing BLM protesters highly frequently, using brutality and violence to suppress our protests. On the topic of male violence, in the past year alone, Sarah Everard was murdered by an officer with previous allegations lodged against him. His colleagues shared memes about her murder on WhatsApp, which is pretty similar to Bibba Henry and Nicole Smallman. 2 black women stabbed to death in London, and the police took selfies with their dead bodies and shared them online, and are still serving. Justice for Bibba and Nicole! Justice for Blessing! Literally yesterday, an officer was cleared by court to allow continued serving despite attacking a woman. If you are an officer who isn't perpetrating this horror, then you are complicit by not condemning it and by not quitting your fucking job. Police are the biggest gang in Britain. They are currently harassing the co-founders of the organisation I am affiliated with, All Black Lives. They have been harassing them for a long time, calling them up and threatening them because they are trying to protest. It is fucking ridiculous. The police are murderers. They are rapists. They are fascist scum. The main thing we can do to stop this fascism and to stop the bill from passing is to keep protesting like we are today, out in our numbers, in solidarity. Those of us who are able to are going to have to prepare that there may be violence from the police. We are going to have to prepare that if we want to be frontline activists, we may be arrested. But we cannot back down. We must keep showing that our direct action will never cease. Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck the police! Fuck Pree Patel! Fuck Pree Patel! Fuck the Tories! Fuck the Tories! Kill that bill! Kill that bill! Kill that bill!
I'm thankful for all the work that Sisters Uncut in London have done for linking the disappearance of Sarah Everard to wider issues about policing and highlighting the dangers of this bill. New RBC is a national campaign to end the hostile environment policy and border controls within UK higher education. In the past year, we've witnessed in horror as Home Secretary Priti Patel has strengthened the border regime to horrifying levels of brutality and violence. Just this week, it's been revealed that Patel is considering removing people who arrive in the UK to seek asylum overseas for their claims to be processed. In essence, Patel is seeking to bring brutal Australian immigration regime of Manus Island to the UK. Just as Patel and this government seeks to further demonise, marginalise, criminalise and oppress migrants, they are doing the very same to demonise, marginalise, criminalise and oppress dissent, the Black Lives Matter movement, sex workers, homelessness and the Gypsy, Roma and Travellers community. The proposed police crime courts and sentencing bill makes that explicit. Not only do migrant communities, which include those who are documented, underdocumented, undocumented and asylum seekers, now have to contend with the renewed violence of the hostile environment policy, but they will also have to contend with the draconian policing that will be used to curtail our voices from protesting. If this bill becomes law, protesting as a migrant, particularly detention as a criminal sentence for protesting would ultimately prevent one from remaining in the UK. URBC is concerned with how this bill will prevent migrants from protesting. We have seen migrants make great inroads in workplace rights during the University College Union 2018 strikes against patient card, and migrant university staff members were only allowed to strike for 14 consecutive days. Thanks to a surge in migrant staff striking and demanding strike provisions in line with those of their British counterparts, strike laws changed to allow migrant workers to not be discriminated against if taking part in legal strike action. However, with the proposed bill, legal strike action will be in jeopardy. Wildcat strikes and protests done by migrant university cleaners, exemplified by SOAS Justice for Workers and KCL Justice for Cleaners, would be even more difficult to organise. URBC knows all too well how universities are quick to use the police to quell protest on campus, clearly shown by the heavy-handed response to red strikes at University of Manchester halls of residence. And if we don't use all our energy in opposing this bill, we will see more police and state violence everywhere, from university campuses to workplaces to outside of detention centres and prisons, and in settings like these. So get involved. We need to keep the momentum going, because this bill, although it hasn't been rushed through, isn't going anywhere, and it's still there waiting to be passed into law. Grassroots organisations like Sisters Uncut are doing most of the work, and if we want to prevent this bill or oppose any other harmful legislation brought about by this shit government, we need to be ready for the fight. So kill the bill!
My name is Natasha, I'm a human rights activist and academic. I was blessed to meet Heba with Black Lives Matter last year. So we need to give a round of applause for Heba! On a serious matter. Before I go on with my speech, anyone that has been suffering from domestic violence or sexual assault, please go to the domestic violence online services. Anyone that's affected by it, please make sure after I do my speech, if you need to speak, I'll be here. Because some of the things I'm going to say might trigger you, quite frankly. All power to Sisters Uncut in London. They managed the mass movement. They challenged and delayed protesters. Power to the people, well done down in London. State violence can be likened to domestic violence. It's an abuse of power in the country. It's an abuse of power in the home. The murder of the young black woman, Blessings Olusegun, the police stated non-suspicious and the media forgot. The murder of black sisters, Nicole Smallman and Bibba Henry, the police took indecent photos, shared, laughed, and the media forgot. The murder of a young white woman, Sarah Everard, by a policeman, but the media remembered. These incidents have one commonality: a gross misconduct by men in uniformed power. No education or degree required to be a policeman. Obedience to overprivileged white men in state power. No community experience required. Passing down protest bills to keep black women like Blessings forgotten. Passing down protest bills to keep Nicole forgotten. Passing down protest bills to keep black women like Bibi forgotten. To keep all women silenced and forgotten. We stand today and we say in this country right now are the Commission of the Met Police Cressida Dick, is the first LGBTQ woman from that community to lead in the Met of London. Priti Patel is the first brown Home Secretary in this country. They are both from marginalised groups. They are both from marginalised groups. We should have been able to draw inspiration from these women. Two accomplished ladies. But instead, Cressida Dick has refused to acknowledge police brutality, rejects resignation, or apologises for institutional misogyny. And that is so very, very transparent in the police force today. Priti Patel glorifies her shakeable racist views of Black Lives Matter and immigration, sending vulnerable women and children back to rape and war. Despite her second-generation migrant background, these two women should have been our allies. They should have been someone that we could have looked up to. They could have changed institutional racism. They could have changed institutional patriarchy. But they chose to use their careers over their conscience. Yes. They chose their careers over their conscience. Priti Patel decided it. We must break down the patriarchy with our persistent voices, our intelligence, our collaborations, our courage, our grit, build mass movements, escalate resistance. That's how we break down the patriarchy. That's how we break down the patriarchy. Brotherhood. We stand together. We will say, we will not be silenced by your state violence. We will not be silenced by your state violence. We will not be silenced by your state violence. We will not be silenced by your domestic violence. We will not be erased by white men in power. All women are rising. LGBTQ are rising. Black and brown women are rising. We are rising. Raise your kids right. Actually, it's come at a good time. How do we build women's empowerment in our society? Have the courage to demand and drive for police and perpetrator accountability. We hold abusers responsible, whether it's in the home, the office, the street, the police force, or the government. Support and protect abused and oppressed people. Guide and cushion them through the system onto healing. 35,000 rapes, only 1,400 convictions. In 2020, 55,000 rapes, but only 1,400 convictions. That was in 2020. The CPS convicted fewer people for rape than any other year where data exists. 1 in 70 chance of prosecution. 31% of young women aged 18 to 24 report sexual abuse in their childhood. The CPS must change the judicial rape practice now. Respond to perpetrator, not victim, blaming, shaming, and ignoring. How do we protect ourselves from domestic violence? Domestic abuse is often hidden, so home education is key. Educate your daughters, your sons, your friends and your family to read the signs of abuse, to love themselves before they love somebody else.
Hell yeah!
violence, to read the signs of abuse, to love themselves before they love somebody else. Teach yourself and others the red flags to protect yourself as if you were a child. If you did not have love growing up, love yourself even more. If you did not have a decent role model growing up, be the decent role model in your community. If you did not have a mother and father figure in your home, be the protector for the lost children in this city. Children the self-esteem to thrive in our society so they do not abuse. Teach them to spot the signs: psychological, physical, sexual, financial and emotional abuse. Teach them the red flags and the signs. Make it okay to share their fears. Then force culpability on the abuser. State violence can be likened to domestic violence. It's an abuse of power. Sisterhood and brotherhood allies, we stand together and we say, we will not be silent.